Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. My guest today is Nicholas Andrew Pagliari. Nick is a certified nurse anesthetist in Austin and Temple, Texas. He is a singer-songwriter who grew up in Memphis, and he just released his fourth album, July 22nd, entitled Hard Lessons. Welcome to the show, Pags.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So, Nick, tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know.
Well, I think you kind of summed it up there. I think the majority of people that know me as a songwriter, as a musician, um, I think may not know that I have a whole nother professional career as a nurse anesthetist. And then I think, well, I know that a lot of people that when I work in a nurse anesthetist setting or in a healthcare setting, a lot of them are very surprised to find out that I'm a songwriter or a musician. So it's kind of funny. I kind of live these two parallel lives. But I guess there's some other things. I played soccer in college for 2 years. I grew up playing sports, and soccer was kind of my number one love. But I was a soccer player. I played at Christian Brothers University in Memphis for 2 years, and I don't know. I guess recently I've learned some Spanish. So, como estás?
Awesome. That's really cool. You grew up in Memphis and you went to school at Christian Brothers High School. What are some of the good things you remember most about your childhood?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I when I was a kid, it was a lot of sports for me, and I didn't really get into music until later on. But I grew up playing basketball and football and soccer, and went to St. Louis Elementary School and graduated from there, going on to Christian Brothers High School, and made a lot of wonderful lifelong friends there. A lot of those guys that I played sports with in elementary school, we all became really good friends at Christian Brothers. A lot of them went to St. Dominic, and so we all became really good friends in high school. But I think some of the things I remember the most are just the friendships, being on those sports teams. Christian Brothers High School was a wonderful high school to go to. It taught me a whole lot, just about myself and just about becoming an adult and a man at the time.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of great memories from that time. And anytime I go back to Memphis, I always have those kind of those nostalgic feelings of being in high school and whatnot. And it's a lot of it's funny. Like if you get on my Apple Music or Spotify playlist, I have so many songs from that era, from the '90s, just all on one big playlist that I love to listen to and just kind of reminisce on. So it's nice.
One of the things that you've talked about, what got you interested in music was the jukebox that was in your home growing up as a young kid. And you said, quote, that is where my early influences in music were from in general. I was probably 6 or 7 years old when my father had that jukebox. We would sit in the living room and he would play little 45s on the jukebox and we would dance and sing songs. I was really, really fortunate and it was really, really cool, unquote. Tell us a little bit about that music and that jukebox and how it affects your music today.
Yeah, that jukebox was something. That's really like, yeah, I feel like that that was kind of the first time, besides kind of like being in church and the music in church and the hymns and things that they would sing in church. But that was really kind of the first time where it was like secular music, that I was really exposed to it, and a lot of it was, from what I can recall, a lot of Motown, the Four Tops, um, the Supremes. Gosh, there was BB King, and then the Beach Boys, of course. We had a couple 45s of theirs. I remember Elton John. I remember Billy Joel. So a lot of that early influences were very pop influenced and kind of soul and Motown influenced. So those were kind of, I think, just embedded in me. It's just like hearing melodies and the choruses and being able to hum those melodies and sing those. I think just kind of naturally just kind of stayed with me even before I knew that I would even pick up an instrument later on. So yeah, those were very very big things that happened to me at that time that I didn't know at the time. So
Awesome. You know, you were first, your first band was what you were at Christian Brothers, which you said you were, quote, coerced into joining. You said, quote, as I learned how to play guitar a little bit more, I started getting a little bit more confident. I eventually ended up playing a lot down at the library on Highland, the old bar down there, unquote. I remember that place well. Tell us a little bit about those times back in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you remember them well. I mean, you know, Clay Tidwell obviously was my best friend in school, and he was a huge influence on me starting as to play the guitar and to sing. He's the one that really kind of talked me into to really getting up the nerve to get in front of people and sing. So it was he and another friend of ours, Bert Lyons, who you probably remember too.
Yeah.
But the three of us, yeah, we started our first band, and then I think after I had originally learned how to play my first song on the guitar, I was hooked, and I didn't want to put it down, and I wanted to start writing my own songs, and obviously learning a lot of songs too is what you do early on, and then eventually, after high school, and we had played several gigs in high school together, just little things here and there. We ended up, coming to your bar a lot at the library, and I've got so many great memories of that place. And yeah, I think like to this day that's kind of really what shaped me in those formative years as being a performer, is just to be able to get up on stage and sing in front of folks. And I don't really know if I had found my voice at that time or not, but I think that it was working towards something like that. A lot of those influences that I had back then were bands in the 90s. And of course, there were so many wonderful musicians in Memphis that were playing at the library at the time, and that whole strip right there on Highland. So a lot of great memories, and definitely shaped, the early beginnings of I think of later on of what I would become as a songwriter and a singer and a performer. So
I spoke with Clay, and he talked about the times that you guys played, and you and Bert, and even with the West Mims. And back in 97, 98, Clay said that we played every Wednesday night and then once a month on Saturday on a beer bus. And he said those were, quote, a magical time. It was pretty special, wasn't it?
absolutely, absolutely, it really was. And honestly, I had forgotten we did a weekly thing. It was every Wednesday, and then we'd occasionally do the big weekend thing. But it was so great because we always had so many friends, and we had it was such a wonderful little community really that was kind of naturally that we kind of built, naturally, really just kind of just with the other musicians and the other bands, and everybody would come out and support everybody else, and it was a nice little musical community. It was a really really great time.
So many relationships started in that bar and music. I mean, so many people that I met, you met, and we still have relationships today, whether it's in person or on Facebook. I mean, it's just it's amazing. People ask me, did you like the bar business? I go, I hated the bar business, but I love the music business. music
Right.
made it music made it worth it. It was so much fun.
It really was. It really was. I can't imagine what it would be like just running a bar from the business perspective, but I know that you guys really, really enjoyed doing the music aspect of it, and it was a great place to go see live music. It really was, and I mean, we had a lot of talented musicians and acts that were, kind of cutting their teeth on the scene, and really just, it's like anything else in Memphis. And I think the music scene kind of really has been the same in Memphis always. It's always been a place where you have a community, and you get your little, you find your community, and you find your little spot that you can perform and kind of cut your teeth in, and it's gritty, and it's natural, and it's honest, and you have people that are really making wonderful music, and you can go out and find that in Memphis, and I think you still can to this day. And honestly, I miss that a lot about other places that I've lived. I don't know if I think that Nashville, I've lived, obviously for a while, but it's such a big place. It can sometimes be hard to kind of find a community of that kind of close knit people. Austin's a little bit the same way, but yeah, there's definitely, I don't know if there will ever be a time like that again in my life where I have that. So I was definitely very fortunate to be a part of it.
I understand that you and Clay and Bert played at a Halloween party at now the head of FedEx Richard Smith's house back in high school too. What do you remember about that?
Well, we did actually. Yeah, I remember that. I think that might have been one of the first times we performed together as a band, and I remember that they brought out this kind of flatbed trailer that we set up on as our stage. Um, I was not a guitar player at the time, so Bert and Clay kind of both took those duties while I was just singing. And I remember playing a lot of cover songs. We played a lot of Grateful Dead, which I've got the shirt on right now.
Yep.
Still a big fan of theirs. We played a lot of Pearl Jam, and we played a lot of kind of that the more contemporary music at the time. But I remember it all being a bunch of our friends. I think there might have been a bonfire in the backyard, and there might have been a couple beers involved. And
Yeah.
but it was a good time had by all. And I do remember um, feeling very nervous about it because it was I think it was one of our first public performances, if not the first time we ever really had performed our songs. Um, and feeling very nervous, but afterwards feeling it was a very gratifying feeling. And I remember it just being a thing where I was like, this is something that I could, seriously see myself doing and pursuing. And I love music so much, and the performing side of it was just it was a real joy, a real thrill, and it's something that I still kind of feel this day every time I get up and perform. It's always you kind of get that feeling of just how wonderful it is. Just there's really nothing like it. I don't really even know how to explain it, to be honest.
Clay said you guys were originally a Jacko Pierce cover band and used to play the song Rain pretty often. And he said y'all made like 4 tracks in your parents' attic, mixtapes, and he still has some of those today. And just like you said, Clay does like to give himself a tiny little bit of credit for the fact that you're because he encouraged you. He said you're really good, at singing, and he taught you a little bit of the guitar, but he said that he taught you, but you overpassed him pretty quickly, didn't you?
He's right. He did. I mean, like it was funny. I think he like originally heard me singing in the car, or maybe I was taking a shower one night and he heard me singing, and he really he was impressed by for whatever reason, and he pretty much he talked me into it. It really does have a lot to do with him for sure. I don't think I ever would have been in a band in high school, much less continued down this path of trying to be a full time musician and a singer songwriter. But yeah, I remember him teaching me chords, and then I didn't even have a guitar at home. My brother had gotten one for Christmas, so I would sneak into his room and steal the guitar every now and then, take it back into my room and learn how to play. But I kind of stuck it out. I've always been a kind of person that my father and my mom really early on kind of instilled that in my brother and I. Just practice makes perfect, and if you ever want to be really good at something, you got to put in the hours and you got to put in the time. And I always did that with the sports that I played, and tried to do that with my academics. And so I took it seriously like anything else, and I played that guitar until I knew how to play it, or at least faked my way through it. So.
There you go. You know, you said you went to college at CBU. Didn't you also transfer and go to UT in Knoxville?
I did, yeah. So I was at CBU for I went there from '96 till about the winter of '98, and then I transferred up for that last semester in '98. So I spent 2 years on the soccer team, 2 fall seasons as a Buccaneer on the soccer team, and I loved playing. Like I really did. I think at one point I got really really kind of real with myself, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be anything beyond a college athlete. And honestly, I had been used to winning a lot more in high school, and when I went to CPU, that whole thing kind of turned. So we won maybe 3 or 4 games the whole entire 2 seasons I played. So I was really kind of burned and just a little bit tired of getting my butt kicked all the time. And but I loved playing with the guys on those teams. I have a ton of great memories from playing ball with all those guys. And I do miss playing. I still try to get out and play whenever I can. My two children, or the youngest one at least, is pretty into soccer, and I've been fortunate to be able to coach his team the last couple of years. So, but yeah, it's a wonderful sport. But and then I did transfer to UT, and I finished up my degree up there. I graduated, I think, in 2001. So.
You continued to play music and then you moved to Nashville. You started a band called Fairfax. Tell the audience about your time playing music in Nashville.
Yeah, I moved to Nashville after I graduated from Knoxville, and I had a band in college that I played with, and two of the guys in that band moved to Nashville, and we decided to continue playing music together, and that's what became Fairfax. We lived on the street Fairfax Avenue. It's
Oh,
really close
cool.
to Vanderbilt, actually, right down the street from Vanderbilt, and we lived in an old rental house there. Me and the drummer. Uh, and then we started the band. We started just writing songs for the band. We started trying to get into some of the local clubs. Um, we ended up gaining a lot of headway over the course of uh, that first year or two, and had a lot of help from some folks in town. We were very fortunate to get on a couple of like Americana compilation CDs with people like Emmylou Harris, and uh, at the time there was a BR 542 was one of the bands, um, and yeah, we just had a lot of things going for us. We got into playing at a place called 12th and Porter. There was a guy there who saw us play, and he booked the club, and he started having us come back, and then he ended up moving over to book the Mercy Lounge, which was kind of the next step up from 12th and Porter. It was a little bit of a bigger rock club, and we would play there and pack the place.
Awesome.
Got a lot of wonderful stories from those nights too, and I'll share one with you real quick. But we were playing on a cold winter night, and it was snowing outside, and uh, we had worked up our set, and it had included one cover song by REM, who happened to be in town playing at the Ryman that same night. And little did we know that they were going to show up to the Mercy Lounge where we were playing after their show, just kind of by chance. And so it's kind of towards the end of the night, and the crowd's kind of on fire at that point, so we kick into this "It's the End of the World as We Know It" by REM, which is
Right.
one of their big hits. And sure enough, all of a sudden we see all this kind of commotion going on in the crowd, and then we see a couple heads bopping up, and they're kind of running up towards the stage, and then they come across on the side of the stage, and it's REM, and
Oh my
jump up on
gosh.
they jump up on stage with us. It's everybody except the singer, Michael Stipe, but they all get up on stage. They all grab an instrument or a tambourine or shaker, and they start singing and playing the song with us, and it was incredible. After that, I kind of don't really remember. I
Right.
think I think they stayed on stage and played a few more songs for the crowd, and then we had a big party afterwards with those guys, and they were so great and down to earth and really sweet, and I think they just enjoyed the fact that there was some young band that had been influenced by them in some way or another, and they were appreciative in their own way. It was really cool.
Awesome story. Um,
Yeah.
in 2007, you had something really exciting happen. Your song "Safe and Sound" was featured in the movie "P.S. I Love You" that starred Hilary Swank and Gerard Butler. How did that come about for you?
Yeah, that song "Safe and Sound" was on an EP that I did. It was my first solo EP, um, kind of right after the Fairfax thing kind of fizzled out. I did a little 6 song EP, and I actually had just been kind of touring a little bit on it, but I think a copy of it got to Molly Smith, Richard Smith's sister, and she at the time was I think she had just graduated from NYU and was getting into the film industry and producing and directing, and she really liked the song, and was just happened to be working on that particular movie, and just contacted me and said I'd love to put it, and place it somewhere in the movie, and I said go for it. So yeah, it was great, and I think at the time I was writing for a group called Highland Music Publishing, and it was a publishing company out of Nashville, and I had just signed to them. Really like kind of right around the same time. So it was it was a wonderful thing. I was very fortunate. I got to go to to the movie premiere in Memphis when they had
Awesome.
it, and it was really cool to see the music in a big production movie like that. Yeah, yeah, it was great.
You moved back to Memphis briefly after leaving Nashville, and you said, "quote The Nashville music scene is just so oversaturated. There's just so many people out there that want to get a major label deal, and then you have faces all over buses and everything. So I wanted to get away from that for a little while." Unquote. How did it feel to come back home to Memphis and record and play out again?
It felt really good. I always love coming back to Memphis. Whether it be to visit or I've come back to live there for little bits of times here and there. But I always love coming back to Memphis, and it is there is a huge difference between the two cities. Nashville obviously. It is hard and it's tough, and you kind of have to grind away. It can be done, and I don't think for what I do, I would have ever really been able to land a major label deal. I don't really know if I was ever really looking for that, honestly. I was thrilled to kind of get the publishing deal and just to be able to write songs for a few years for somebody, and then and then pay me to do so. It kind of actually allowed me to not have to work, as a waiter somewhere.
Right.
Um, but it was great coming back to Memphis for a little while, and it was really nice just to kind of get back into that scene. And Memphis is like a place where there's not a whole lot of pressure. You don't have to feel the weight of trying to be this sort of thing, or trying to write this kind of song for this particular radio genre or station or whatnot. You just kind of do your own thing, and I think the sooner I kind of figured that out, just the better I felt about being an artist anyhow, and being able to write songs that I want to write, and just for myself really. And if there's other people out there that connect with it, then that's just that's a bonus. And I've kind of carried that over now until now as a writer. Basically, I do my thing, and hopefully people love it, and if they don't, it's fine. There's a ton of music out there, and there's
Right.
a lot of people writing music, and a lot of artists, and a lot of great writers, and a lot of great singers. So it's really tough to kind of get out there, and really be in a position where you've got millions of listens on a Spotify or something. But it's okay. I don't mind just being able to make music at my own pace, under my own terms, and do my thing my way. So it's actually I'm much happier for sure.
Quote Pagliari is a storyteller who has taken his stories and put them into songs. He is a man with a task, and that is to spread the snapshots of life he has frozen with the story telling into the musical consciousness of the airways that beam into our lives. Unquote. Where did your storytelling style of music come from that really came out full throttle in your second album, Please and Thank You?
Um, well, you know, I think it just kind of goes back to, you know, just kind of that thing that I was talking about earlier with my parents. Just practice makes perfect. I mean, if you're writing all the time, it's going to be like anything else. You're going to get better at it, and it's really a matter of just sitting down and putting in the time. And I think at some point though, I realized that I needed to be a better lyricist, and I needed to be able to tell those stories, and be able to kind of convey certain types of images, and in a different way. And so I think what I guess what I'm trying to say is that at some point I decided to focus more on the lyrics and more on the editing. And nowadays when I write a song, it takes me a lot longer than it used to, and I think it should. I think I
Right.
should. For me, I need to be able to spend time with the song, with the lyrics, and I need to be able to go back and say, well, I think it could be better if I do this. I think it would be better if I took this line out and I put this line in. And so I spend a lot more time with the music now and the songs, and I tweak and I constantly edit, and it's made me a better writer. And I've just focused on that more and more. the older I've gotten and just kind of the more I've developed as a writer. And more than ever, really, I think it's come out in my last two albums. But I mean, I'm kind of like my own worst critic, so I'm always, trying to better my next project,
Right.
and just be better, so I continue to just nitpick at things and make sure that they're as perfect as they can be. I don't always want to stick on it and be such a stickler that the song never really gets put out there. But I guess there's nobody really else that I can bounce the songs off of unless it's like somebody that I'm working with as a producer that can say, hey, I think this is as good as it's going to get. So
Right.
it's nice to have that moment of clarity too every now and then, because you can kind of run yourself ragged as an artist or as a writer if you're continuously trying to reach some sort of perfection, which probably really doesn't exist. But you know,
Petty was an amazing musician who had both success with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and as a solo artist too. And his interest in
yeah,
rock and roll, started at the age of 10 when he met Elvis, and he passed away suddenly about 5 years ago, at the young age of 66. Back in 1994, when you were just 16, Tom Petty's Wildflowers came out, and you were so excited you couldn't wait to go to Cat's Music here in Memphis to buy the album. You said it was, quote, so beautiful and so inspiring. Tell us what he meant to you, because obviously he had a big influence on your music today.
yeah, and he uh, he was he's probably single handedly been one of the biggest artists that's had an influence on me. And you know, he was another one when I was very young. My mom had records of his, and we would listen to in the car all the time. So even though he wasn't in the jukebox, he was there
Right.
when I was very very young. But yeah, he's just always been kind of like that constant figure in my musical brain. And I think anytime I'm struggling, with a song or something, or if I'm struggling to find a chord progression or anything, I can always just think back to Tom Petty's music and be like, well, now kind of what would he do in this situation? Because to me, Tom's music is very very simple. His lyrics can seem very simple, but they're very profound and they have such a wonderful deep meaning to them, and he can do that in so few words. And to me, that's what a great writer is. So that's kind of what I've always aspired to. Um, and whether or not I'll ever get there, I don't know. But it's definitely had that influence on me, and I think it's just another tool in my belt as a writer that's helped me, kind of become the writer that I am now. But yeah, I can't say enough great things about Tom. I was honestly devastated when he died. He died on my birthday, and it was what, 5 years ago now. And my wife and I were in Clarksdale, Mississippi. She had taken me down there just to go down there and hear some blues music. I'd never really spent a lot of time down in Clarksdale, and it was really wonderful. But obviously, when we got the news that day, it was really, really sad. But yeah, I love Tom. Obviously, we do a Tom Petty tribute night every year if we can. Despite the COVID stuff that happened the past 2 years, but I love those nights because it always, it takes me back to learning all those songs, and then I get all the nostalgia of that, from childhood to high school years, and so it's really great.
Yeah, it was great hearing you do that tribute here in Memphis at Rail Garden back at the end of April. So yeah, you nail it. So
Yeah.
you cover him really well. So you should be. I'm sure he would be very proud of you, because you cover him really well.
Well,
Nick,
thank you.
you're welcome. After playing music for several years, by the time you hit 30 years old, you decided to change directions a little bit in your life and go back to school. What led you to that decision?
Well, I had been in Nashville and in Memphis, and I'd been full time just trying to be a writer and a touring musician, and it was just getting kind of tough. You know, I still consider myself a lifer as far as a songwriter goes, and as a musician, I'm never going to quit writing. I'm probably always going to be putting out records and music, but I knew that it was just a time where I needed to kind of figure out something else, and honestly, I was a little burned too. I just was kind of getting to the point where it was, I needed some sort of other thing in my life to kind of help balance out just putting all my focus on music and everything. So um, I don't really know why I chose what I chose, but I can say that at the time I was with a girl who was a medical sales rep, and she, obviously was going into hospitals and was making friends with different healthcare professionals and whatnot for her job. And so it kind of led me to meet a friend of hers that happened to be a nurse anesthetist. And I do remember being out one night with him at a dinner, and he kind of was telling me a little bit about what he did. And so it kind of sparked an idea in my head, and I started doing a little bit of research on what it would take to become a nurse anesthetist and what it would take to become a registered nurse. And and I did my research, and I decided that I was going to go back to school and give it a shot. So I already had one degree, but I needed a lot of I needed about a year's worth of uh, prerequisites to be able to get into a nursing program. So I did that for 1 year, and then I got into a nursing program in Nashville. I went to Belmont University. I got into like an accelerated program, which was about a 16-month intense program that I just did nothing but study. I was working at the time too, but I was working at a Hilton as like a server and a bartender. But pretty much school consumed the majority of my life. I did get married during that time, and I ended up having a baby right when I graduated from nursing school.
Right.
So I had a lot going on, and music kind of went on the back burner, and it was actually kind of a good thing because, like I said, I was a little burned out, so it was kind of a nice thing to do. And just kind of use a whole nother part of your brain for a little while, and just see what you can do. So I went for it, and it was the greatest decision I've ever made. I mean, I worked as a nurse in an ICU for 3 years, and then I went back and I got into the anesthesia program in Nashville at a school called Middle Tennessee School of Anesthesia. Uh, that was in 2015. I graduated at the end of 2017. Got my first job in Austin, Texas, as a nurse anesthetist, as a nurse anesthetist in January of 2018, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. So, and it's a wonderful job. It's a very rewarding job. It's taught me so much. Just not only about the job itself, but just about myself as a person. And it's been really great. And like I said, it's kind of like the perfect balance for my brain to be able to kind of um, you know, have a whole nother, have this professional career, kind of like on one side, and then this creative career on the other side. And it's great. Trying to balance that with family and everything else that comes along with having children and whatnot has been challenging, but very rewarding too. So
You sort of referenced to this a minute ago, but a great musician never, truly never quits music. I mean, they sometimes maybe take a break from it though, like you did, and you took several years off from playing music when you started your family and career. But did you have a moment where you just decided, I'm going to pick up the guitar and I want to start playing again?
yeah, and I don't think I ever really just put it down, you know, for really long periods of time. I mean, I still have moments now where I go through phases where I won't write for several months, and then I'll write for a lot for a couple months. It just kind of comes in waves these days. But I don't have a guitar in my hand all the time, probably like I did in my later years in high school and in college. But yeah, there were moments definitely where it was just I had to focus on getting through school and working, and so I wouldn't have time to really do any music or play any music. So there were months that where I didn't pick up a guitar and where I didn't do it. But I would always try to at least every couple months or so, or every so often, pick it up, play a song, remember why I love doing that, and then go back to doing what I had to do. So.
So the first song you ever wrote the lyrics to was about a girl you were crazy about, and she wanted to have nothing to do with you. You said you don't remember the name of the song, but you probably remember a few of the words to it. Do you remember some of those words at all?
Um, I do. I think the chorus was something like, "Remember standing in your driveway, um, like hugging and kissing. We said we would never separate." Um, and then I think that's about all I remember, to be honest with you. But that was either a verse or a chorus part. Um, and gosh, Clay would probably remember the whole song if you asked him.
Right. He probably does. Maybe y'all can play it at the 25th year reunion next year for the
Yeah,
library.
right,
That would be
right.
funny. That would be really funny.
We could definitely play. He wrote a song called North Angela, which was based on a time where we all kind of got in trouble with the law once when we were in high school. So we might be able to break that one out. I'm pretty sure he probably still has the original lyric sheet somewhere.
That's awesome. So, Nick, you and your wife, Carmen, just celebrated your 11th anniversary on August 13th, I believe. You said,
Yeah, we did.
quote, happy anniversary to the love of my life. Today we celebrate 11 years of blood, sweat, and tears, but our love held it together all together. More adventures to come through this life as we run hanging on to each other forever, unquote. How did you and Carmen first meet?
We met in Nashville through some mutual friends, and um, the story. Well, so she saw me performing one night at a place, and I didn't know who she was, um, and I don't think I even met her that evening. And then I think about a week or two later, I went to a show at the Five Spot in Nashville. I went to go see Justin Townes Earl play, and she was at the show sitting at the bar, and I kept noticing her, and I noticed her with a kind of a mutual friend of ours. So I didn't. I don't think I had the guts to go up to her that night, but at some point we end up all hanging out together at another friend's house on another night, and that's kind of really the first night where we kind of met and chatted and talked. And you know, um, I couldn't tell you exactly what night that was, but it had to have been. It was around probably May of 2010 is kind of when we first met. And then I think I asked her out, and it's funny because she ended up moving to Austin, Texas, like about a month or two later, right after we met. And so we did a long distance thing for the first year or so, where I was kind of flying down and seeing her, and she would come back to Nashville occasionally. But yeah, that's how we met. And then I ended up uh, uh, ask her to marry me. I think not too much longer, maybe like a year after we were dating. It wasn't very much longer. And then we were married August of 2011. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Great story. It's one of those things where I always say there are no such thing as coincidences. And the fact that she saw your show and then you saw her at the bar with a friend and then ran out and hanging out together with a group of
right.
friends, it was supposed to happen that way. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. And yeah, we always kind of laugh about it, but yeah, it just it it was just so funny because right after we had met, and she had these plans to move to Austin, and I'm sitting there thinking, gosh, like this girl's so great, and now she's moving away, and I
Right.
was really kind of bummed, but thank God she was open to having some sort of a long distance relationship with me. So it worked out good, and I think all that stuff, amongst all the other things we've kind of been through, is just it's just made us stronger, and it's been really wonderful. She's fantastic, and honestly, we wouldn't be here in Mexico if it weren't for her. She's the one that found out about Sayulita long before I was in her world, and it's such a wonderful, magical place. I'm very grateful for the things that she's kind of introduced me to along the way. So
Awesome. A few years ago, Carmen talked about having to have a prophylactic double mastectomy. She said, quote, 3 years ago, I found out that I had the BRCA2 gene mutation, which means I could be one of 7 out of 10 women that would end up with breast cancer. Many family members on my mom's side struggled with it and ended up taking my grandmother's life premenopausal. I'm so grateful that I found out I had the mutation and learned all about the options I had for reconstruction. I refuse to leave my kids in this world. I want to be there for better days, unquote. Nick, you call Carmen your number one fan. You said, quote, my wife is such a strong person She's really overcome a lot of adversity and has always been a fighter for the underdog, unquote. You also have called her a giver, and she's extremely empathetic. She sounds like a pretty amazing woman. How has she been able to stay so tough during difficult times?
Yeah, I think it's just in her nature, man. And I think it's just in the nature of women in general. I feel like women are just so much stronger than men. I mean, witnessing her birth our two children without any, anesthetic, for one thing, I was a huge believer after that, of course. I mean, I already knew she was very strong, and I knew that long before. I've been impressed with her just as a person ever since I met her. I mean, before I was around, she was a single mom for a long time to our son Nikaya, and I was just, I couldn't. I was when we first met, I was just astounded by their relationship and just how wonderful it was. And I knew that she one day would be, and eventually, I hoped that she would, had she ended up with me or agreed to marry me, that she would want to have children, and I was hoping that she would be a wonderful mom to our kids, which she has proved to be. But she's so strong, and yeah, unfortunately, she's had family history of breast cancer, among other cancers as well. But yeah, when she found out that she was positive with the BRCA gene, she had made the decision that she was going to go ahead and do that. And it turned out to be, it was a very tough thing to go through. And, I don't know how she did that either. She was in a lot of pain. She had some complications with it, but she pulled through. And it's like she's continued to blow my mind time and time again with just how strong she is, how strong-willed she is, and just she's just she's incredible. I mean, she's also just like not only just like a strong person in that sense, but she's also just a wonderful advocate for others. Like I said, like you said in the quote, for the underdog, like she stands up for the folks that don't have a voice, a lot of times, and she's there. And so it's really admirable to see that, and it's really made a huge impact on me as well. So yeah, can't say enough good things about her.
That's awesome. Two of the most important and special days of your life are May 4th, 2012 and December 13th, 2013. And, those are the days that your two sons, Arlo and Sonny, were born. A few years ago, you said of them, quote, "These two best friends, they couldn't be more different. They balance each other out perfectly. I love them so much it hurts," unquote. They also, you mentioned they play soccer together, and like you did growing up too, and you get to coach them on what you call the same dream team. Carmen also had, mentioned her son Nakaya, who I know you love very much. Tell us a little bit about the three of them.
Well, we're so fortunate right now because they're all three here with us in Mexico, and they have been for the past month. So it's been great. But they're all so wonderful in their own ways. But it's greatest to see them when they're all three together, and the five of us get to go out and have a meal together, and or go to the beach like we did the other day. And we've had so many wonderful moments since we've been here in Mexico, that we haven't always been able to have just because of work and other things that happen in life. Obviously,
Sure.
Nakaya, he's 26 now, so he's got a full-time job and does his thing in Austin. Um, and uh, and then Arlo and Sonny, although they're around each other all the time, it is true they're very different. Arlo is a little more introverted and kind of more creative mind, a little more artistic. He's very much into to video games and whatnot. Sonny, I think a little bit of that rubs off on him too, but he's very interested in sports. And we just watched Rocky for the first time today, and man, now he wants to be a boxer. So it's so they're so different, but they're so wonderful together. And I think they do balance each other out. It's like a yin and a yang, and that's why it's great for both of them to be each other's brothers. I mean, they're I think one learns from the other, and vice versa. And so that's been really really great to watch that. Uh, to watch that relationship kind of develop over time. But it's been really special though having all three of them here, and yeah, I love all three of them to death, and it's been really really wonderful to have them around. And, you know, I feel very fortunate to be able to have that happening, you know, for a couple more months at least. So
Awesome. Um, your latest album is called Hard Lessons. You said of the album, quote, the reason I called the record Hard Lessons is all these songs I wrote were during the pandemic, and it was a time that was very difficult for most people in the world. Things were uncertain. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of negativity and darkness in most people's heads, but maybe it is time for people to learn from it and move forward in some ways, unquote. You must have had to really, Nick, reach deep down to write a lot of this album because, I've always known you to be such a positive and uplifting guy. So to me, that goes a little bit against your grain a little bit.
yeah, and it's true. And you know, and it's I think kind of earlier what I was saying about um, lyrically really kind of spending a lot of time. I wanted to do that really with these songs too, because I felt like it was important to do that. Um, Especially when you're writing music that can be kind of universally accepted, because you know no matter where you were in the world, we all kind of were affected, you know, by the
Right.
pandemic in a similar way. So, but yeah, it was tough, and it was something that I'm probably not used to doing. But you know, I'm happy and I'm proud of the songs, and I think they turned out great. And I spent a lot of time on them, and I really, really wanted to write the best songs that I could that kind of expressed, you know, how I felt about those couple years, and hopefully, you know, maybe somebody that listened to it could connect with it in some way, and maybe it would help them to kind of realize that you know there's hopefully there's greener pastures ahead, you know. So,
Do you have a favorite song on the album of yours?
um, you know, I think I think my favorite song on there is "Here Comes a Woman." Um, I think you know it was a song that I had written, and it had totally different lyrics to it, but I decided to rewrite it, and you know, and it kind of goes back to that whole thing we were just talking about, like with my wife. I mean, like just women being strong in general, like so that's kind of the concept behind that song. So I wanted to really really get that one right. And I think also too why I like it so much is because it's just so simple and the production's very simple, and it I don't know, it kind of reminds me of Tom Petty, I guess, in a way, you know?
What are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life?
um I think I think I'm still learning a lot, but one of the most important things that I'm continuing to work on is to be a more empathetic person. I'm trying to really understand and put myself in a position of somebody else that may not, you know, have the same, you know, values, or may not think the same way that I do, or may not be as fortunate as I am. I'm really trying to work on being a person that can just be able to understand that about other human beings, um, you know, and try to be a more considerate person. Um, my wife would probably say that I have a lot more more work to do, but I'm trying. And honestly, like for a long time, I think you know, just as a person, I was kind of caught up in my own bubble for a long time, and then I met my wife, and she kind of really opened me up to you know being able to understand like how that person might be feeling about this thing that happened to them in their life, you know, or being able to understand, you know, why somebody might view this in this certain way. So that's what I'm really trying to do, and I think that's important that we all do that.
Absolutely. How can people find you or follow you on social media to hear your music?
You can follow. I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook under Nick Pagliari. I've got a fan page. And I've also just got a regular page on there. You can follow both. I'm on Instagram. It's at Nick underscore Pagliari. Um, I'm on Twitter, Nick Pagliari. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, um, pretty much all the streaming, Amazon Music, all the streaming uh, sources out there. You can find my music on. So
we've known each other for 25 years now, and how obviously everybody says it's old cliche, but time flies. But it's flown by the 25 years, and I can tell you, man, from the bottom of my heart, you have always been one of my favorite people. I remember you well from back in the time, at the library. You were always so nice. You always took pride in what you did. You were just so considerate. You worried that you wanted to make sure that had a good enough crowd. I mean, just everything that I can ever remember about you and the time I spent with you back then was all positive, man. And from the bottom of my heart, you're just a great guy. It's
Well, thank you, Mike.
it's been a pleasure, to seeing you grow in the man that you are, and I'm really proud of you. And it's been awesome to have you on today, man. It's been great.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you having me, Mike. And honestly, like when I say this too, like thank you so much for giving me those opportunities and those formative years to get up there and do what I love doing, because it was, it's still a passion of mine. It was back then. I was very passionate about music, and you gave me a place to be able to do that and express myself. And I can't. I'm basically eternally grateful for you for that. So I'm ready for the reunion anytime. I'll
Uh,
do whatever. I'll do the 30-year reunion, the 40-year reunion, whatever.
we're
So
going to do it every 5 years until we're all gone. So
awesome.
it's going to be fun. I'll look forward to
I'll be
seeing you
there.
next
I'll be
year.
there.
And thanks again for coming on today, Nick.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Take
Take
care.
care. You too.
Bye.